Okay, today we're gonna do Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. Talking Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. We're not speaking about different cases. Had a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim. Rabbi Yehuda says that after the time of Isur Chametz starts, then a person cannot check for Chametz anymore because we're scared that he's going to find Chametz and eat it. So we're asking different questions on Rabbi Yehuda. We asked a lot of contradictions between different dinim. We see Rabbi Yehuda isn't scared someone is going to do something which is asur. And we answered yesterday that it depends which type of isur. If it's an isur that people are used to, meaning everyone knows that's asur, so because it happens very often, so people don't. We're not chesed someone's going to do the isur. When it comes to isur chametz, which isur chametz is something which only happens once a year. People are used to eating bread the whole year. So Rabbi Yehuda was scared that we're going to eat chametz on the time it's us, and therefore a person should not check his house. So says the Gemara, we finished off yesterday all the way at the bottom of that Fridal and Dalef, the last two lines. Says the Gemara, is any time that we said before, is it true that every single time someone stays away from Isser, Rabbi Yehuda is not gezer, that he might do it? Meaning is Ratani, we learn in Brisa, B'cher Shach Sedam. If you have a person has a B'cher, a Kohen has a B'cher, has an animal which you got for a B'cher, and he has a blood sickness, there's a problem with his blood. Afilu hu mace, even if the animal is eventually going to die, it's a sickness that's a deadly disease. The Kohen cannot give him an injection to take out the bad blood. Even if he's not making a mum, which injection is not a mum, because it's not a permanent thing. But the Kohen is also to give him an injection to take out the blood. He has to shech the behemoth, and that's it. That's Rabbi Yehuda Shita. Say, Yakiz, he should take the injection. As long as he doesn't put a mum on the animal. So we have a machlekes whether a person is able to take injection is fine. But we're scared that the Kohen is going to put a mum on the animal. What does this mean? Because a b'cher that dies, an animal b'cher that dies, turns into an avela, and the Kohen can't do anything with it. If it's alive, so then the Kohen could save its life and eventually shecht it, or he could do whatever he wants with it. But if it's dead, he can't do anything. So he doesn't want this behemoth to die. So what should he do? Give an injection. The problem is, if he gives an injection, he might make a mum. He might give it a mum, make it a blemish. And once it's a blemish, then anyway, it becomes asur, and it's asur to put a mum on a b'cher. So the question is, are we gezer that he shouldn't give an injection because he might make a mum or not? That's machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Chacham. Chacham say that we're not gezer, he's going to make a mum, and Rabbi Yehuda says we are gezer, he's going to make a mum. So it's a contradiction to the idea that Rabbi Yehuda is not gezer on his certain that we might do that. Why, when it comes over here, Rabbi Yehuda is scared that you're going to make a mum. When it comes to other cases, which we learned yesterday, Rabbi Yehuda is not scared you're going to be over on the Isser. What's the difference in the Isser of making a mum and kachin on the B'cher to any other Isser we mentioned yesterday? For example, Shabbos, we said that you can't take, Rabbi Yehuda is not cheshish that a person is going to take oil from a lamp on Shabbos, and so forth. Says the Gemara, there's a big difference. Hasam, in the case of a B'cher, Adam Bahul, Alma Meine. Starting now at the top of Yud Alpha base. But in the case of a B'cher, a person is very scared about his money. And therefore we say, if you're going to let him make an injection, even if the injection is not a mum, he might come to make a mum on the animal. But Bonon, so what's Rabbi? So that's what Rabbi said. It's us because we're scared that a person's scared for his money, and he's scared that the animal's going to die. So therefore, he might as well. He's going to make a mum on the animal, so the animal shouldn't die, even though it's us. But so therefore, Rabbi said you can't even make an injection because once you open up the barriers to let him touch this animal with any medical needs, then he might end up making him. But Rabbanon, so what's Rabbanon? Why do Rabbanon let him make an injection? Because Kol Shekin the Ile Shadis Le Klal Asnal Mabit. Rabbanon say if you're not going to let him make an injection, he's for sure going to make a mum. Since a person's scared about his money, so if you don't let him make an injection, he's going to make a mum by himself. So therefore, Rabbanon say let him make an injection. So anyway, we can't make a proof from there that Rabbi Yehuda is always chayshish, that a person might ever isser, because if there's a special case, if they're speaking about a person being scared for his money. Says the Gemara, asks the Gemara in this answer, do we say this concept that a person is scared about his money, so therefore will be ever isser? Is there such a concept that Torah is chayshish, that because someone is scared for his money, he might be ever isser? Now we bring a contradiction from a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, we cannot the person cannot comb the hair of his animal on Yom Tov. Why? It could be that through combing the hair on Yom Tov, he's going to make a chabur. He's going to make a blemish in the animal, and blood's going to come out because the combs are very pokey in those days. So if he makes a blemish in the animal, it's an isser on Yom Tov. It's a malacha to make a chabura, to make a bruise or a blood blemish on the animal. So therefore, you can't use a comb on Yom Tov. But you're able to use a comb, a wooden comb. A wooden comb, we're going to see in a second, is much more wider. The metal is less pokey. It's less pokey, and it's much wider. Much wider. The comb is much wider. So therefore, as much less as no chash that he's going to make a blemish on the animal. That should be the shit. Chacham say, you can't use any combs. Chacham argue, says no combs. You can't comb your animal on Shabbos, on Yom Tov. But Tanya, and we learn in Rabbi, Ezo Kidur, Ezo Kitzu. What is the difference between the combs? What's the difference between a metal comb or a wooden comb? It's Kidur, Ktanim, Beis Chabur. A metal comb or iron comb has very small teeth and very pokey teeth, and therefore it can make a bruise. Kirtzuf, Delim, when it comes to a wooden comb, they're much bigger and they're less pointy, and therefore they were not going to come to make a chabura on the animal. So from here we see that Rabbi Yehuda, even though a person is scared about his money, even though a person is scared that he is scared about his money to because he doesn't want the animal to get hurt because it has the animal's in pain because it's not comfortable because its hair is not combed. Rabbi Yehuda still said that it's mutter to use a wooden comb, and we're not chayshish that he's going to use a metal comb. If a person is scared about his money, why we're not chayshish that he's going to use a metal comb? A metal comb is much better than a wooden comb. So why, when it comes to the case of Bechir, Yehuda said you can't make an injection because we're scared he's going to make a mum because he's scared about his money. So we are chayshish on one action, then he might do another action. When it comes to combing the animal on Yom Tov, we're not chayshish he's going to use one comb. He's going to use a metal comb if we mat him to use a wooden comb, even though a metal comb is better. So that's a contradiction. It says the Gemara Hasam di Shavik le Mais. The big difference. A person, if he has an animal that's about to die, so he's much more animal about to die, and then the animal's going to be useless. He's going to do everything in his power to save the animal, even if it's awesome, because the money is going to be lost. So Hasam di Shavik le Mais. If he's just going to leave the animal the way it is, the animal's for sure going to die. So therefore, it's going to be over. Since he's scared about his money, he's going to be over Issa of putting a mum on the animal, so the animal shouldn't die, save the animal's life. So therefore, over there we say, over there we say that a person is going to be over an issue to save his money. But in the case of Yom Tov, coming animal Yom Tov, what's the worst that can happen if you're going to leave the animal until after Yom Tov? Nothing's going to happen. The animal's going to be tzad the animal. The animal's going to be in pain. So on the bottom to save the animal from pain, since you're not losing any money, so a person won't be over on an issue to save the animal from pain. And therefore, in the case of the animal, if Yehuda is not chayshish, he might use a comb which is us. In the case of a Bechir, if Yehuda is chayshish, that if Yehuda said you can't do anything because Bechir, that you might do a isur to save your money. Says the Gemara of Yehuda, what's maskar the Gemara? Ma'ishna gabi chametz the gazar, ma'ishna gabi kaitzu the loy gazar. So what's the difference regarding chametz? Back to the case of chametz. Why when it comes to chametz? That person might eat chametz on time when it's also stuff. He can't check his house. But when it comes to combing animal, we're not chayshish, you might over the issur. So why when it comes to chametz, is chayshish, you might over needing chametz, even though it's asa. But when it comes to combing animal, we're not chayshish, you might use the wrong comb to comb your animal, and there might be asa the comb. So the Gemara lechem belechem michlaf. When it comes to bread, the person's so used to eating bread during the year. So if he finds a piece of bread, he might come to eat it automatically. But kidur, the kids of flame a person, when it comes to combs, a person knows the difference between a comb. You don't naturally use one comb. There's two different types of comb. So if we tell you before to use this type of comb, you're going to use this type of comb. You're not going to mix it up with a different type of comb. Even though we tell you that you can't eat bread, since a person naturally eats bread, he doesn't see a difference between today. He forgets which day it is, and he eats the bread. He doesn't know the chametz. He knows the chametz, but he doesn't internalize the chametz is also on Pesach, just before Pesach, and therefore he's going to come and eat the chametz on Pesach on the time when it's also, which is, remember, until now we're segment until the night of Pesach, which chametz is also, it's not Issachar, but it's still us. So we finished that sugya of why Rabbi Yehuda says it's also to check you cannot check your chametz after the time of Isser. The reason for that is because you might come to find chametz and eat it by mistake, and it's not daimah to any other yisurim, because other yisurim, there's something that sticks out that stops you from eating the chametz, from overing the Isser, whether it's Shabbos or whether it's the case of the combs now they're using different type of comb. Shaking Megab chametz, there's nothing to remind you that you're not, that chametz is asur now, and therefore you might come to eat it. So now we're starting a whole new discussion. It's a new Mishnah, a new piece of Gemara, which has nothing to do with the piece that we learned until now. Says the Mishnah like this: the Meir says, when do we stop eating chametz? We stop eating chametz eichlin called chamish. We can eat chametz for the whole 5th hour of the day, meaning obviously these hours aren't hours as in our hours. Our hours are made. We have a clock, but in the time of there's an argument exactly what hours mean, but hours doesn't mean 5 o'clock. It means the 5th hour into the day, meaning before chatzos is half the day. So 5 hours into the day, we can eat chametz until the end of the 5th hour. V'soifin, which is v'soifin, and when it comes to the 5th hour, b'tchilas sheish, in the beginning, at the end of the 5th hour, meaning the beginning of the 6th hour, we have to then burn the chametz, and that's when chametz becomes asur midrabanan. At the beginning of the 7th hour, meaning by chatzos, the end of the 6th hour, that's when chametz becomes asur deiraisa. But Rabbanan more makdim the issue of chametz from the beginning of the 7th hour and made it to you have to burn chametz by the beginning of the 6th hour. They're makdim by an hour. That's your Meir shita. Yehuda says, Yehuda says, the issur of eating 2 hours ahead, meaning that for the whole 4th hour, meaning until the end of the 4th hour. Then when it comes to the 5th hour of the day, you leave the chametz, meaning you don't burn it, but you can't eat it either. And you burn it in the beginning of the 6th hour. So everyone agrees, the Meir both agree that you burn chametz at the beginning of the 6th hour. The only difference is what do you do at the 5th hour. For that, an hour before you burn chametz, what are you supposed to do? So according to the Meir, you have to stop eating chametz. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to stop eating chametz 2 hours before then. But when it comes to the 5th hour, you just leave the chametz hanging around. You don't burn it yet, but you can't eat it yet. That's machlekes. Another concept Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda, shtei chales shel teda psules munaches agava itztaba. And the Beis Hamikdash is called the carbon teda. Carbon teda is one of the only kabbanis that were brought from chametz. Most of the kabbanis in the Beis Hamikdash, even the kabbanis that had bread, were not chametz. They made sure they didn't become chametz. But when it comes to the teda, carbon teda was chametz. So as a sign to tell everyone when is the time. Remember, those times they didn't have any clocks. They had sundials, but not everyone knew the time. So as a sign to tell everyone when is the Isser Tir Chametz, in front of the Beis Hamikdash, they had in the Rabbi, they had a big stone, which was a very central place, and they put 2 breads of the carbon teda, 2 lechem lachme teda, 2 loaves of bread of the carbon teda on this stone. Calls man shemonaches, kala echlim. Whenever those 2 breads was there, you're going to have Pesach. If you looked at your window, you saw those 2 pieces of bread over there, then you are able to carry on eating chametz. Nitla achas, when they took away one of those pieces of bread, meaning the shteich habezim would come at the beginning of the 5th hour and take away one of the pieces of bread, toilin, then everyone has to stop eating chametz. You can't eat, but then you still don't burn. So the symbol was when the time to stop eating chametz was they took away one of the loaves of bread. When it comes to the beginning of the 6th hour, which everyone agrees you have to burn your chametz, so then they took away both the second loaf of bread, meaning now there was no loaves of bread, and and then everyone started burning the chametz. So the sign, if you to burn chametz, if you looked in the Rabbi's, you would see there's a stool over there. That if there's 2 loaves of bread there, then you could carry on eating. If there's 1 loaf of bread, you have to stop eating, but you still don't burn it. If there's no loaves of bread there, then that's a sign you have to start burning your chametz. Another din in the Mishnah says, Gamliel says, Cholin. So in Tana we had an argument when you stop eating chametz. So Yehuda said you stop eating chametz by the 4th hour, and the Meir said you stop eating by the 5th hour. But Gamliel has a special shit, and he says it depends what type of chametz. If it's cholin, if it's regular chametz, the cholin called arba, you can eat it for the whole 4th hour, and the beginning of the 5th hour, you stop eating chametz like Remeh. But if it's truma dika chametz, so called chametz, you can eat the whole 5th hour until the end of the 5th hour of the day, and you burn it in the beginning of the 6th hour. So according to Gamliel, chametz, which is truma, has a different din than, meaning you have a whole extra hour to eat chametz, which is truma, you have until the beginning of the 6th hour of the day. So according to Gamliel, there's a difference between truma and chulin as and you have to stop eating at the beginning of the 5th hour. Mashenkin truma dika bread which is truma, then you have to stop eating. You have a whole extra hour to eat this, to eat the truma dika bread. And the reason for that is the Rishonim say is because we don't want to stop eating something which is mutter ba'achila truma, which is truma is mutter ba'achila, and apidirais you have to eat it as soon as possible. So therefore, we want to give you more time to finish it off, as opposed to making useless an hour early. Says the Mishnah like this. So now we finish the Mishnah. Now the Gemara is going to go off a bit sidetracked, which has nothing to do so much with our Mishnah directly, but it's a Hagdama, it's an introduction to the next piece of the Gemara. Says the Mishnah like this, says the Gemara like this. Nan Hasam, we're not in the Mishnah Sanhedrin regarding Eidos, Hilchos Eidos. Sanhedrin speaks all about Din Beis Din. So we have it in Hilchos Eidos. What if you have Echad Eimer B'Shnayim B'Chedesh, Echad Eimer B'Shleisha? What if you have one set of Eidim says, you have one Eid says that he was killed, that Reuven killed Shimon on the 1st day on the 2nd day of the month, on Beis Tevis, let's say. And you have another Eid that says, or another set of Eidim that says that Reuven killed Shimon on Gimel Tevis. What do? Do we say that this is a valid Eidus and they're not contradicting each other, or do we say that they are contradicting each other? So the din is Eidus and Kayamas. Their Eidus is Kayam, meaning that it's a kosher Eidus, even though they superficially contradicting each other, because one says Reuven killed Shimon on base, and one says Reuven killed Shimon on Gimel, so they got the days wrong. So how can it be a kosher Eidus? So the Mishnah says, is there any of them? Very simple. They're both speaking about the same case. They both know how Reuven looked, and they know how Shimon looked, and they saw that Reuven killed Shimon. So they're not contradicting each other on a fact. Elamai, what happened? They Pasha got the dates wrong. One of them heard that Beis Din was Ma'aber the Chedesh. Beis Din made the Chedesh extra day, and therefore he said that he killed him on base. One of them, for some reason, never heard that Beis Din made the Chedesh extra day. And if Beis Din never made the Chedesh extra day, meaning there was only 29 days in the last month, not 30 days, so today's not Beis, today's Gimel. So therefore, they're not contradicting each other, because factually they could be right, because one of them heard that Beis Din made the last month extra day, said therefore today is Gimel, and the other one never heard therefore today is Beis. Another one never heard therefore he's a day ahead, and today is Gimel. Remember in those days we didn't have any calendars. The way we knew if Beis Din, it all depends on if you heard what Beis Din said. So one of them pushed in here if Beis Din made the month before extra day, and therefore you got the dates wrong. This is all if one says it was Beis and one says it was Gimel. What if a new case? One says Gimel Teves, he saw Reuven kill Shimon. One says Hey Teves, he saw Reuven kill Shimon. So in this case, Edusam Tela. In this case, the Edus is functional. The Edus is bottom. Why is the Edus bottom? Because Even if you never heard Beis Din from Ma'aber the Chedesh, Beis Din made the Chedesh longer, it can't be that they're 2 days off. The most you could be off is 1 day, because we only make the month before, the maximum capacity of the month before we can add a day is only 1 day. We can't have 2 days, so it can't be that the Edom could be 2 days off. And if they're 2 days off, means one of them is a short line, and therefore the Edom isn't a good Edom. If it's only 1 day off, it could be making a mistake in how long, if Beis Din or Ma'aber the Chedesh or not. The Mishnah Gemara continues explaining the Gemara in Sanhedrin. A new case. Echad Emer b'shtei shoyos. One aid, that's it, Reuven comes to Beis Din and he says that he saw, not Reuven, that's a Yankov comes to Beis Din and he says that Reuven killed Shimon in the second hour of the day, meaning in the morning. Echad Emer b'shalosh shoyos. The same day, another aid comes to Beis Din. Let's call him Beryl. Beryl comes to Beis Din and says, "I saw Reuven kill Shimon." It wasn't on the second hour of the day. It was on the third hour of the day. So they're 1 hour off. What's the din? Edusam kayames. Their edus is kosher. Why? Because it could be, just like we said before about days, it could be that one of them, that they didn't keep track of time, and therefore when they make a mistake, they're 1 hour off. 1 hour off. The person can get the wrong time by 1 hour. Again, remember, they didn't have clocks in those days. They had sundials and things like that. So it's easy to miscalculate 1 hour off, and therefore they're not lying. It's just they're making a mistake of what time they saw. One of them thought it was 2 hours into the day, and one of them thought it was 3 hours into the day. 1 hour off, they could still not be contradicted. What about a case? Echad Emer b'shalish. One of them said that he saw Reuven kill Shimon 3 hours into the day, meaning the third hour of the day. Echad Emer b'chamish. And one says that it was 5 hours into the day. So now they're 2 hours off. So Rabbi says 2 hours. 2 hours is way too much to make already a mistake. Edusam Tela, their edus is nullified. Divrei Rabbi, that's Rabbi's opinion. Why is the edus nullified? Because we're going to see in a second that there's two ways of touching this Mishnah. But the Pashut is that people don't make a mistake in 2 hours. 2 hours is way too much time to make a mistake. It's too much of a time difference to make a mistake. Which hour was it? One says it was 3 o'clock, let's say, and one says it was 5 o'clock. So 2 hours is too much of a contradiction, and therefore the edus is bottom. That's what Rabbi shit. Buddha argues and says no. Edusam kayemes, the edus is kosher. We're going to see Buddha's reasoning why, but the Pashut is that Buddha says that even 2 hours is not such a big. It's fine. He got the time wrong by 2 hours. He thought it was 5 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock. Next case, what if one says that I saw Reuven kill Shimon, let's say 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock doesn't mean 5. I'm saying it just to make it more not 5. Sorry. One says I saw Reuven kill Shimon on the 5th hour in the day. One says I saw Reuven kill Shimon on the 7th hour of the day. So one said basically, let's say I saw Reuven kill Shimon at 10 o'clock, and one said I saw him kill Shimon at 12 o'clock. So even though they're 2 hours apart, in this case, Rabbi Huda says it does some tail of the edus is about the why. Because in this case, even though they're only 2 hours apart, we just said before that even if the 2 hours apart, Rabbi Huda still says it's kosher, but this case is different. Kosher b'chamesh, chama b'mizrach. In the 5th hour of the day, meaning around 10 o'clock, the sun is in the east. B'shava, chama ma'arav. When it comes already 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, the sun is a different position. So the sun is different position. It can't be that they made a mistake. Everyone looks at the sun. You could see where the sun was. And therefore, since over here there's a clear recognition between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock, let's say, because the sun is a different place, in a drastic different place. Obviously, the sun is a different place every hour of the day, but over here it's a drastic different place. The sun moved in a completely different direction. So over here it can't be making a mistake, and therefore we say that they're contradicting each other, and the edus is both. Okay, so we have an argument between, we have basically argument between Yehuda and Rabbi. Rabbi says that a person can make a mistake if the mayor says that if 1/8 says that he killed him, that Reuven killed Shimon at the 3rd hour of the day, and one says that Reuven killed Shimon on the 5th hour of the day, their edus is bottom, because 2 hours is way too much to make a mistake. And Yehuda says that in this case it's even kosher. Why? Because even 2 hours you can make a mistake. Rabbi says, if you're going to look deeply into this Mishnah, there's 2 ways of explaining this. 2 ways of explaining the reason for their argument. We're not going to do the Abaye's way of explaining the reason, so we're going to see Rabbi's way. So Abaye is like this. If you're going to look deeply into the argument, what are they arguing about? They're arguing about like this. The dividend made ain't on them. According to the maid, a person can't make any mistakes. A person doesn't make a mistake in the timetable. The dividend of Yehuda, Adam Teva Chatisha. But according to Yehuda's opinion, a person can make a mistake by half an hour. What does that mean? Let's see. The dividend made ain't Adam Teva Leiklum. According to the maid, this is all Rabbi's opinion. Rabbi explains, I think the maid says that a person can never make a mistake in time. And therefore, if one says that, if one aide says that in the second hour of the day, Reuven killed Shimon, and another aide says that the third hour of the day Reuven killed Shimon, the reason for why according to Rabbi it's kosher is not because a person can make a mistake. Because according to Rabbi, a person can never make a mistake in time. A person keeps track of time. So why is it kosher? Because when did the case happen? The case happened when it could be they're both right. Why? Because the case happened the time span when it was going over from the second hour to the third hour, in between, in other words, let's say 2:59, 2 hours and 59 minutes into the day, Reuven killed Shimon. So now, the first person is saying it happened 2 hours into the day. It didn't mean the beginning of the 2 hours. He means that which he said happened 2 hours into the day. He didn't mean that the beginning of the 2 hours. He meant the safe time. He meant that the end of the 2 hours of the day, meaning the beginning of the third hour, that's when Reuven killed Shimon. The one who said that Reuven killed Shimon in the third hour of the day, he doesn't mean he killed him at the end of the third hour. He means at the beginning of the third hour. So they're not even arguing with each other. It's not that they made a mistake in time. Each one, when he says the second hour, and when he says the third hour, they mean different things. When he said the second hour, he means the end of the second hour. When the one said the third hour, he means the beginning of the third hour, which is almost exactly the same minute, right? The end of the second hour, when the time is the 1 minute difference between the end of the second hour and the beginning of the third hour. And when did the case happen? The case not going to happen then. Let's say a case happens at 3 o'clock, 2:59, let's say. So one aide comes to base and he says, 2 o'clock, Reuven killed Shimon. 2 hours into the day, not 2 o'clock, 2 hours into the day. And the next guy comes and says 3 hours into the day, Reuven killed Shimon. Who's right? It could be they're both right. Because it could be that Reuven killed Shimon the end of the second hour, the beginning of the third hour. So that's Rabbi's opinion. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that a person, even if one comes along and says at the third hour, and one comes along and says the fifth hour, they still believe. According to Rabbi Yehuda, a person can make a mistake in half an hour. He has a half an hour gap to make a mistake. What does that mean? Because Maisa Beihava, the case could have happened. The case the Mishnah is talking about is a case that Reuven killed Shimon, but Palga the Arbahava. He killed Shimon in half an hour before the fourth hour, which means 3.5 hours into the day. So 3.5 hours into the day, Reuven kills Shimon. Okay. So one of the Edom says he killed him the third hour into the day. So how far is he off? He's off by half an hour. The one who said Shalish that he killed him the third hour of the day, the safe Shalish. What do you have in mind to say? He has in mind to say that he killed Shimon the end of the third hour, meaning he's half an hour off. Because let's say Reuven killed Shimon at 3:30. I say Reuven killed Shimon at 3 o'clock. I don't mean he killed him at 3 o'clock. I mean he killed him at the end of 3 o'clock, which is at 4 o'clock. So I'm half an hour off because really killed him 3:30. I say killed him 4 o'clock. So how much is he off? He's off half an hour. So the Bible says Yedus is kosher, even if you're off half an hour, even though you say you killed him at 4, he killed him at 4, and really killed him at 3:30, half an hour is enough to make a mistake. It's fine. So the aide, the second aide who says that he killed him at 5 o'clock, what does he mean? He doesn't mean he killed him at 5 o'clock, meaning 6 o'clock. He means he killed him b'tchilas chadsh. He means he killed him at when he says 5 o'clock, he means 5 o'clock on the dot, the beginning of the fifth hour. So the beginning of the fifth hour, how far is he off? And he's making a mistake in half an hour. Why is he making a mistake in half an hour? Because that what you said, the story happened at the beginning of 5 o'clock. He means the end of 4 o'clock. What's the end of 4 o'clock? The end of the fourth hour, which is he's making a mistake in half an hour of the cheshbon when the person killed. Again, the person killed someone at the person killed someone. Reuven killed Shimon. Reuven killed Shimon at in the middle of the fourth hour, and he's saying Reuven killed Shimon at the end of the fourth hour. So since he's saying Reuven killed Shimon at the end of the fourth hour, he's only half an hour off. So therefore, it's kosher. So they're both only half an hour off. So when we said one says 3 o'clock, one says 5 o'clock, so it comes out that they're 2 hours off. The 2 hours difference. But if you explain that the one who said 3 o'clock, it didn't mean 3 o'clock. He really meant 4 o'clock, the end of the third hour. And the one who said 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock, he meant the beginning. He meant the end of at the end of 4 o'clock. So there's only the difference between them is only an hour. So they both happened in between them, and they both make a mistake of only half an hour. They're only half an hour off of when the case actually happened. That's Abaye's way of explaining. Meaning, the gist of the thing is that a mayor says no one makes mistakes. The only mistake that could be is in understanding. Do you mean the beginning of the 5th hour, or do you mean the end of the 4th hour? The case happened going the transition from the 4th hour to the 5th hour, and they make a mistake in the terminology. One used the terminology of 4 o'clock, but he really means the end of the 4th hour, and one used the terminology of 5 o'clock, but he means the beginning of the 5th hour. So therefore, they're not the terminology is different. But according to Yehuda, it's more deep than that. But a person could make a mistake. We let him give him half an hour's time to make a mistake between different cases. Some people say that Abaye said the pshat differently. This is one way of learning that Mishnah, learning the argument between Yehuda and Rabbi. There's another way of explaining the difference between Yehuda and Rabbi. What's the other way of explaining the difference between Yehuda and Rabbi? Amr Abaye, Kshatim Soleiman, the Divrei Rabbi Adam Toya Mashu. According to Rabbi, the reason for Rabbi is that a person can make a mistake by a small amount of time, and the reason for Yehuda is Divrei Yehuda Adam Toya B'Shal Mashu. According to Yehuda, a person can make a mistake not in a little bit, but a person has a time span to make a mistake of a whole hour and a little bit. So Yehuda's Mesif on Rabbi a whole hour, meaning a person has the ability to make a mistake for a whole hour and a little bit. What does that mean? It means like this. According to the mayor, a person has the halachic, I'm going to call it the ability. A person is able to make a mistake by a little bit in time. Therefore, the mayor said that if one aid says that the story happened in the 2nd hour of the day, and the second aid says the story happened the 3rd hour of the day, it's kosher. Why is it kosher? Because Masechta Yahava. The story. When did the Reuven actually kill Shimon? Let's say you have a camera. You can see when he actually killed Shimon. When was it? It was right? The story happened or at the end of the 2nd hour, or at the beginning of the 3rd hour. Again, they didn't have minutes in those times, right? So the end of the 3rd hour could, if you say the 3rd hour, either could mean the end of the 2nd hour, either could mean the beginning of the 3rd hour. So that's when the story happened. The story happened either the beginning, mean the transition between the 2nd hour and the 3rd hour. So now you have two Eidim. Chad minayu teiba mashu. According to one of them, is making a mistake in time. And since according to one of them is making a mistake in time, so therefore one of them is mistaken, right? Because the story happened in an exact time. The story happened either at the beginning of the 3rd hour or the end of the 2nd hour. It's not the same time. Because obviously there's a different time space between the beginning of the 2nd hour and the beginning of the 3rd hour and the end of the 2nd hour. But one of them is saying the exact time. And the one who's saying the 2nd hour, let's say, the reason why he's 2nd hour is because he means the end of the 2nd hour, but he's making a small mistake. It wasn't the end of the 2nd hour, it was already the beginning of the 3rd hour. And that a person can make a mistake. That's how you explain Rabbi. In other words, not the time before. The reason the first shall we explain until now was that the time is the time which is a problematic time because there's no we don't know how to categorize the time change between the 2nd hour and 3rd hour. That's why they're using different terminologies, but it happened at the same time. Here we're saying no, it didn't happen at the same time. Meaning they're speaking about the same case, but one of them saw it the exact time. And that's what he's saying happened the 3rd hour. And the one that says it happened the 2nd hour, the reason why he's saying 2nd hour is because he thought that it was still at the end of the 2nd hour, even though it was the 3rd hour. But a person can make a mistake in a small time. That's the mayor's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is a person can make a mistake in a whole hour and a little bit. And therefore, Masechta Yahava, when did the story happen? Reuven killed Shimon, either the end of the 3rd hour or the beginning of the 5th hour. Because in other words, Either the story, we have two options. Either you could say that if now you could say that one of them it has the ability to make a mistake for now a little bit. So we have two options. Either we could say the one. So again, one of them is saying the story happened 3 o'clock. One of them is saying the story happened 5 o'clock. So when the story happened, either you could say the story happened at the end of 3 o'clock, or in the beginning of 4 o'clock, and the one is saying 5 o'clock is an hour off, and that's okay. Or you could say the other way around. The story happened 5 o'clock, and the one who's saying 3 o'clock, he really means the 3:59, and he's an hour and a minute off, and that's okay. And that's the way they explain the Yehuda and the May. Okay, we're going to finish over here based on a bit of a hard Amud today. The bottom of Yud Aleph Amud Beis. We're going to do Yud Beis Amud Aleph. Have a good night.